Russia says it's creating a buffer zone to keep it safe from Ukrainian drone and missile attacks. The Defense Ministry said that it had brought down nearly 100 Ukrainian drones fired into Russia on Monday night. The volley came after a 3-day barrage of Ukrainian cities by Russia. Let's take a look at what the creation of a buffer zone could mean.
The aftermath of strikes in Ukraine's northern Sumy and Chernihiv regions. Far from the front lines in the south, but increasingly under attack in recent days. Just over the border, Russian President Vladimir Putin recently visited Russia's Kursk region, where Ukrainian forces took over 1,000 square kilometers of territory last summer, embarrassing the government and tying up Russian troops for months as Russia retook its own land. Now it wants to make sure Ukrainian forces can't come over the border again, and deter Ukrainian drone and missile attacks that have struck deep inside Russia.
Considering the drone raids, actions of sabotage and reconnaissance groups that attack civilian transport, including ambulances, both women and children being killed and injured, a decision was made to create the necessary security buffer zone along the borders.
It's unclear just how much of Ukraine Russia wants as a buffer. One politician and former general told a Russian newspaper that the zone should include parts of the Chernihiv, Sumy, Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk, Mykolaiv and Odessa regions. This would put Russian-controlled territory and the Russian mainland out of range of Western-supplied HIMARS and other longer-range missile attacks. Former Russian president and current security official Dmitry Medvedev went even further in a Telegram post, saying that if Western weapons deliveries, including longer-range missiles, continue, Russia would need almost all of Ukraine as a buffer, leaving only a tiny strip on what is now Ukraine's western border as sovereign Ukrainian territory. For Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, keeping the weapons flowing is key to Ukraine's survival and to keeping pressure on Russia to engage in ceasefire and peace talks.
We are ready for all steps that can guarantee true security. It is Russia that is not ready for anything.
The calls for a buffer zone could be a bluff to try to deter Ukraine's allies from delivering more weapons. But Russia has been gaining territory slowly for the past 2 years on the front line, at the cost of thousands of lives per week. Creating the buffer zone by military force would mean a massive broadening of the offensive to push deep into Ukraine.
Well, for some context now, I'm joined by Marina Miron. She's a military analyst at the Department of Defense Studies at King's College London. Marina, it's good to see you. If this is indeed what Russia is planning, can it succeed in creating a buffer zone? And do we know what would a buffer zone, what would it look like?
Good day, Brent. All of those are very good questions because realistically, even Russian commentators don't agree on where the buffer zone should be and what it would look like, what would it entail, aside from the range that it would protect what is considered to be proper Russian territory and also the annexed territories from HIMARS strikes or artillery strikes, as well as drones. But the problem is, does Russia have enough time and manpower to do that if the offensive is ongoing? And we have heard this before. We have heard this, I think, the first time mid-23 when Putin decided that there was a necessity to create a buffer zone. So maybe they are creating some sort of a buffer zone, at least in the north. So speak Sumy, Chernihiv region, basically those areas bordering the Kursk and Belgorod regions of Russia. But as far as the rest of it is concerned, it remains questionable. And so what is going to happen then? Is the war going to stop? Is this going to be the official buffer zone for a ceasefire? It's very unclear in terms of terminology and in terms of how it's going to be executed and where exactly.
Marina, what more do we know about what Russia might be planning for this new offensive?
Well, there are talks about summer offensive. There have been for a while because of the weather conditions in spring. It's not the best time for an offensive, and so there are a few possible directions. We're seeing activities along in the Kharkiv region, but at the same time, another possibility could be Zaporizhia or Kherson. So it seems like the Russians are trying to disorient the adversary, in this case, the Ukrainian armed forces, in order not to show their hand where exactly they would be attacking. But it is very possible that the summer offensive is underway, and the talks about the buffer zone could be a way to conceal and to divert attention.
I want to ask you about something the German chancellor has said. Chancellor Merz said that there will be no more restrictions on long-range missiles supplied to Ukraine. So what are the implications of that?
Well, it depends on what happens. I mean, in the political realm, we have already heard the response from the Kremlin, and Putin took the political responsibility to draw yet another red line, and he's being criticized inside Russia even prior to this incident because Russia has, according to those opinions, not responded to anything that the West has done and has delivered to Ukraine, or not responded as would have been expected. Now, the problem is these announcements and these talks have been there for a year. So the question is, how many missiles will Ukraine get? Who is going to train the Ukrainian forces? What range will they have? Will these be the standard Taurus missiles, or will they have a shortened range like the ones used by South Korea? And of course, what will be the targets? And of course, for the Russians, the possibility of strikes in the rear are not very attractive, but 100 or 150 of such missiles going to be enough to change the strategic picture of the war is not clear. What is clear is probably this time there will be enough pressure from below on the Kremlin to respond in some form. For instance, when the Storm Shadow missiles and Scalp missiles were used on Bryansk region in Russia, the Russians responded with Oreshnik. Maybe we will see another response with Oreshnik, but I'm not sure. It depends again on the timelines, on whether the question is still in the air whether Ukraine will get these missiles, because Friedrich Merz can announce this, but he still needs approval in order to deliver them to Ukraine.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Military analyst Marina Miron. As always, Marina, we appreciate your analysis. Thank you.